are again back at the weigh-in.
Hell yeah. It feels good to be back.
It does, man. And what season do we have coming up, brother?
Halloween.
Yep.
And I'm very excited. So today we're going to talk about the scariest movies that we've ever seen. So let me just, right now, just earmark this with the idea of that. I'm going to say as a grown man, the movie that I picked was the scariest movie that I've seen as a grown man. Okay,
so you got other levels too, right?
Yeah, because I mean, as a kid, you know, anything can scare you. You might see Dumbo and be like, "Holy shit!" Like this is an elephant flying. But as a grown man, my pick is the Blair Witch Project, the original, the one that came out in 1999.
Love it. I'm with you on that. That's fantastic.
So,
it's a fine film. So
to think about this movie, you have to think about the movie came out in 1999.
Yeah.
Okay, so. That is pre-Y2K for millennials. Y2K was an actual thing. So you know, it was cell phones were around, but they weren't heavy.
Right.
You know, and it was a found footage film.
Yeah.
So basically, when they premiered it at Sundance, it was under the guise that the characters in the movie had died. And everything you seeing is the footage of what happened.
Okay, you're talking about that teaser footage they released kind of early.
Yes. The marketing was insane.
Yeah,
it
you know
was
something?
Genius.
That really worked. I actually saw those on the earliest days of the YouTube. Or I picked it up on a website because it was out there and somebody said, like, you know, there's a story about these people who get lost and all shit goes to hell and everything else. I'm going, what are you talking about? And then I watched it. They're all happy. They're getting ready to go on the trip.
Yeah.
It was a good marketing tool for its era.
The trailer was cut phenomenal. The marketing around the movie, the fact that it's like, are these people dead? Is this real? You know, and this is back before Google.
No, well, I think they told us they were actually dead, but now we're finding out why, but we weren't really sure if they were dead.
There was no search engine, so you couldn't type in these people's names.
So it was a website is where I saw one, just a generic website.
Yeah. So the movie had 3 main characters.
Right.
And I remember the girl in the trailer, and everybody makes fun of the girl because she's kind of sniffling. She's got like the gray winter hat on and she's sniffling. Her name was Heather Donahue.
Yeah.
And everybody used to make fun of her for that.
Did she have a slight little drip?
Yeah, she had some drip. And like that, to me, that was part of the acting chops. It was 2 other dudes, Michael C. Williams and Joshua Leonard. Okay.
Which I don't think I've ever seen again.
No. Fun fact about this movie. So they produced this movie for $60,000.
That's something?
Okay. So they made $248 million. Artisan released this. Artisan paid them 1.1 for the movie, so they made buku return.
But they don't think they shared any of the additional money.
If the kids were smart, they got points.
I hope they got a little bit at least, but they were shocked. You know, 60,000 to 100, you know, to 1 point something million.
Yeah, that's insane. So, to give a short synopsis of the story, they go to Burkittsville, Maryland. You know, they're college students and they're researching this project. So the idea is that there's this witch called the Blair Witch in this town. It takes the kids, kills the kids. It's got some house in this forest. And one of the keys to this movie is that the Blair Witch would kidnap a bunch of kids and she would make kids stand in the corner.
Yeah, right.
So for me, there's a lot of things that made this movie scary. One of the things for me is that you don't get to see what's actually happening. It's a lot to do with sound. It's a lot to do with like the screams in the background. It's a lot to do with almost that idea of like disorientation of your senses.
Well, it definitely accomplished that. I mean, because throughout the whole film, as you're seeing them, you know, get lost and not know where they are, and really start doubting themselves, and then they start to believe things. The human mind is a frail thing, and when you're all alone and cold, and you've just spent a whole day and you're back where you are at the end of that one sequence,
yes,
you freak out, man, because you know darkness scares us and the unknown, and the night sequences were bizarre. The screaming, that's when we heard a lot of the screaming.
There was a lot of the screaming at night. And
it kind of spooked her, right? Didn't they kind of move her stones or
they were
that?
moving things around. Right. They were placing stones on their little campground. Every time they tried to leave, they were getting lost. So there was the idea of disorientation. And it was everything spooky. So one of the main things for me is that they never showed the antagonist.
I know.
Which is the Blair Witch. You never see the Blair Witch, for the first and the second act. So
well, there might not be no physical persona. We don't really know.
Yeah, you don't know. And that's what makes that shit scary.
But she clearly was in their head, whatever it was.
Yes, but it's the persona. So they say that the scariest thing is what your own imagination can come up with, what you can conjure for yourself.
So you develop more of the image that you don't see even.
Yeah. So whatever a person in Hollywood, a scriptwriter, a set designer can come up with will never be as scary as what's in your own brain. So I thought that was phenomenal.
Yeah, it blew me away. When I went, my kids were young. We decided to go because I wanted them to get an experience of suspenseful horror.
Yo, you took them to the scariest shit
Well,
ever.
they weren't babies, but they were like around between 8 and 12 or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe around, See, I like horror, so I didn't think that would really bother them as much.
Yeah.
And like their kids, my daughter's kids are young. They couldn't go to a horror film like this right now.
Yeah.
But Sarah and Emil, when they were a little old, they were probably in their 12, 13 range.
Yeah.
And they clearly bought into it. And they knew it was spooky. But we know it was all fake, obviously. But it was so convincing.
But see,
the whole audience was like, well, you could tell. I felt it in the air. The audience was shitting their fucking pants.
I'm a beg to differ on that.
You don't think so?
Early on, because they set up that premise.
No, as all shit falls apart. I'm talking about.
Yeah.
After the first cycle, they get back to the camp again, and they see the little wicker fucking men in the trees.
I get that, but early on, because of the hype of the movie. And maybe because I was a little bit younger, I just bought in. Because you got to think about this.
Well, I bought in too. I mean, I'm not denying that.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that you're like, is this really found? Because, it wasn't like traditional Hollywood. It was that.
Yeah.
It was a grainier, a lower quality film.
Yeah, they shot on lesser quality cameras. Yeah. And it's really not about the pretty of Hollywood. It's about the intensity of the actual story and the personas.
So you get that more tangible, real quality.
Seems more realistic.
Yeah.
Like when that girl was crying to the screen in the famous scene you're talking about, I felt it.
Yeah. So there becomes a point where, because there's 3 of them, the one kid, he gets lost. I think it was Josh. I don't remember. So then it's just the 2. So then it comes
tall
to
guy got lost,
yes. So then it comes down to the girl being by herself.
Yeah, it does.
Because they were looking for Josh, and then it comes down to her being by herself. So now you get this feeling of isolation. And you encompass that, as the viewer. So you're like, oh my God, she's by herself, I'm by myself. This is crazy. And like I said, when I go to a movie, I lock in. So I'm in my mind, I'm like riveted. I'm like on the seats. I'm like, holy shit! I wish I had covers or a blanket to put over my eye.
Well, that 3-act situation really worked out well for the film because as we enter, you've got getting there.
Yes.
You have that part happening. We get there.
Yes, sir.
Now they sort of fuck it up a little bit in the middle.
Yes,
and
sir.
now it's like we got to try to get out because obviously she's got us now, right? And at that third act, I felt it in the audience. That whole third act, everybody.
It was tense.
Yeah, it was in the air, man. It was thick. You could cut it with a knife. Everybody bought into it, and they started to believe it because the way they played it off. And the fear, that whole it's trying to escape, but it's behind you.
Yes.
It's like now that we're talking about it, it's like it's even disturbed me a little bit now when I come to think about it. I might need to watch it again, a little fired up on a couple.
No. It's a good, it's a good movie. So. Spoiler alert. The spoilers will be strong in this one. So the punchline. The girl gets to the house. She finds the one kid that she was with. Not the kid who got
the other fella.
Early. Yeah. And he's standing in the corner.
Yeah, facing
and that's
the
creepy.
wall.
And it's reminiscent of the stories that they heard from the people that the kid would be in the background. And then all of a sudden, you hear a blunk like she gets knocked on the head with something. The camera falls. That's the end of the movie. You never see the protagonist.
I know you don't.
So fun fact, I was staying with my grandmother.
But we don't even really know what ends up happening to her either at the end of this.
We have no idea.
I think we see the shaky camera and she's running away out of the woods or something.
Yeah, but that camera falls and it just shows a wall.
Yeah, right.
So fun fact, I was staying with my grandparents at the time. Mm-hmm. we stayed in a giant house off the street on Fillmore. And then they had this huge basement. So I remember it was summertime when this movie came out. And I had to go get my laundry that was in the basement. I was scared as shit. I was a grown man.
Because there was a wall.
I was a grown man in my 20s, and I was like, I was kind of creeping in the basement like, oh, shit. I never thought how scary this is. And in my mind, because I just seen the movie, I was paranoid. For being in this huge house.
I'm not shocked at all. I mean, it was dark probably until you popped the light on. Right?
Yeah, I'd never forget, I went to see the movie at 7 p.m., so now it's like, it's dark outside by the time I got home, and I was just like, oh my God, this is scary. So that, for me, is the scariest movie that I've seen as an adult.
Oh, I think it's absolutely a great call, and I totally agree with you. I feel the same way about that film.
In the paranormal activity films and all the found footage films.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them, and I wish I could think of all the names, but we'll address that later on. But
Definitely.
you know, speaking of things that like scare you, like when you talked about this was the one that scared you as an adult, but I always remember this here as like, you know, it's, you know, people might say, oh, I've seen Psycho a million times, but I'm going to bring up Psycho.
Oh, you going with the classic?
Oh yeah, sure.
Because big dog,
dude. That film is intense from beginning to end.
Yes.
But the beginning really caught me as a young boy. I mean, Alfredhitchcock knew how to spook you for sure.
Yes.
And then you had that absolutely amazing, you know, soundtrack by Bernard Herrmann. When you know, he remember the screeching violins in the death scene in the thing. But in the beginning, if you remember the film, you know, it turns out the girl, which was Janet Leigh, which later on becomes Jamie Lee Curtis's mom.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, her and Tony Curtis get together, have a child, and that's Jamie Lee Curtis. So obviously she had a life of horror because of her parents and stuff. Tony Curtis was the Boston Strangler, which is another great suspenseful film.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So anyway, you know, the film's got like this narration kind of feel. She's on the road, she's got a bad life, she's in the car, she steals the money. You got the whole like, it's the whole like dialogue diary kind of thing. We're on the move, we know something's up. She sees the boss in the car, he's not sure what's going on. She's obviously stole the money. So, I mean, obviously, there's no spoilers for this film, because if you haven't seen this one from 61, I don't know what to
1960, that film came out.
But as the film
and
develops...
it's still tough.
Oh, it really is. Well, I had seen it at an early San Diego Comic-Con in the early 70s when we were with my parents. We were down there.
And you seen it at a Comic-Con?
I saw it at Comic-Con. Wow. Because they always used to show horror films and science fiction movies in the early days.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, we got to talk about this later.
Yeah, because they would go all night. So there's always pubs, and you could drink beer all night. Kids were smoking pot and everything. And I was a young boy just watching horror films as a young boy.
Oh, so is that how you kind of got
That was probably the first film that really did it for me.
Okay.
I was aware of, you know, Bela Lugosi and all those monsters.
Yeah.
I was actually a little even scared of those guys a little bit. But I was probably around 16 or 17 when I saw Psycho. And as I watched the whole thing, my father knew he'd seen it. My mom possibly had seen it too. And they were busy at the table. While they were running the table, I ran off to the film room.
Yeah.
And I just got so absorbed in it because I always heard about the film.
And Hitchcock was a master.
Oh, he sure was.
Setting up shots.
But I didn't really know about it. I mean, quality of the film was absolutely stunning. You got the house on the hill. She shows up. It's raining. She's at the base motel. He comes flying down. First, you see him upstairs in the window with the wig on. So Janet Leigh thinks, oh, it's the lady who runs the house. And here comes Anthony Perkins running down. Hey, sorry, I'm a little late. Perkins. What do you need? I need a room. You do. You know, the whole setup and everything.
He was phenomenal, by the way,
unbelievable.
too.
Possibly Academy Award potential.
Definitely.
But they weren't taking horror that much serious at that time.
That's a shame.
Yeah, because they didn't. I mean, it really is a shame. I mean, Hopkins got he got the Academy Award for Best Horror Actor from Hannibal.
Oh, yes.
Prior to that, there was nobody else that won.
So that probably opened the door to say, okay, this is a serious genre.
Yeah,
even though it was already serious prior.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Anthony Hopkins being a British, well-trained, kind of a classical, Shakespearean type of theater, they said, actor kind of a fella.
He's extremely tough, yeah.
They realized, okay, this guy really played this,
So if he...
Clarice and all that stuff. But what a film, Psycho. And as it plays out, and then we got the murders and the deaths and the revenges, it's a totally twisted film. And it's more twisted than every time you watch it. You got to accept where you're at. You can't go like, oh, it's black and white. People always use that excuse. Don't use black and white as an excuse, folks.
I think black and white is phenomenal. And the thing about
it scares you more.
That was a movie that they spent less than $1 million on, $800,000, and they made $50 million.
Yeah, they did.
Which at that time was like $500 million.
Oh, it was mind-boggling. Well, you know what Hitchcock had done? He wanted to try to find a way to keep costs down. And so that if the film didn't do super well, it would actually do well on a limited basis. But it did so well anyway. So the bottom line is, it just did phenomenal.
So he didn't have to worry about the bottom line.
So so what he did was he hired a film crew. So he had a TV crew that actually worked in film. And they shot everything in film on TV in the old days.
Okay.
There was some video, but it wasn't like the main technique. So he hires a film crew to shoot a TV show style horror film. So he keeps the budget down, and they understand how you work fast, get it done, sell the horror, and boom, this thing hit the screen. People lost their mind.
What was one of the key things that made this movie so scary for you?
Because you don't really know exactly what's going on until you get about more than halfway through the film. And you start realizing, like, when the detective shows up, and he walks in the house, he goes to the top of the stairs, and he gets attacked, and he gets cut across the face, and he falls backwards. You still don't know if it's really a mother. And then he runs back in the room and goes, Mom, I told you not to do that. So he's yelling as if he's the mother, but he's really, and then he goes, what is the problem, son? Mom, I told you not to do it. He's playing the dual role. It's pretty fucked up.
Hitchcock was a master at that psychological suspense drama. He
totally
would crush you with that, and it would get into your blood, and it would make your blood run cold.
It worked. It absolutely worked. I can even correlate that to the Blair Witch effect that you had.
Yeah.
Because, I came in fresh. You came in fresh to the Blair Witch, and I saw Blair Witch too. I came in fresh, and I accepted what I was watching. I didn't go, that's phony. This is going to be a phony movie. I like to sort of let my guard down a little bit and let the horror play in. Then I find it to be much more effective, unless it's a bad horror film. And Hitchcock doesn't make a bad film.
Hitchcock is a genius.
He pulled it off. I was a teenage boy. I told my dad, I just watched Psycho and the Psycho here.
What did your pop say?
He goes, you actually watched Psycho? You got through that?
Now, did that give you nightmares?
Oh, yeah, because we were on the road at this time. We were traveling in Winnebago.
And you were on the road? Oh,
we were on the road.
God.
And so we had a 1972 Chevy Impala, and we had a Winnebago attached with a hitch at the back, and we traveled the convention circuit.
You're living this movie.
Oh, yeah. When we stopped at these little, camping, that's mine.
Yeah.
My Henny's mine, and your Henny's yours, brother.
Henny
boy number 2, how you doing?
Henny boy number 1, don't cross Henny.
No, so being a young boy, I'm very susceptible to things. You let your mind float a little bit.
Yes.
There was weird things at night, these camping grounds that would go on. People would be around fire, packing shit up, loading up their vehicle. The next day, they were all gone. This is like 3 or 4 in the fucking morning kind of stuff.
Damn.
But I think I let everything seem like it was more scarier than it probably was. But as a young boy...
But you were impressionable, and that movie has such a strong impact. The trailer was cut phenomenal.
Yeah.
And
I was always fearful of black and white.
Yeah,
always fearful of what the unknown is about.
To me, black and white is scarier than color.
It probably is, but even like a regular,
it raises my hackles.
Oh, it definitely does, because it seems surreal. It comes off very.
There's
surreal.
something extra sinister about it.
That's a good way of putting it. But even in a regular horror film, when somebody is down an alley and they're kind of strolling around and they don't know what to do, even if it's a color film and it's dark, it fucks with your head, man. It really does.
Absolutely.
Look, you know what I'm thinking? We need to address this subject a lot more.
Oh, we're definitely coming back to
this. Films from our 70s, things that we liked as we were young kids in the 80s.
We're going to explore the ages and the films that scared us at different ages. That's
beautiful.
Absolutely
this was a
correct.
Fantastic episode.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the weigh-in. If you enjoyed what you heard, if you liked it, please leave a comment. Please subscribe. Right now, I'm going to break down the 10 laws of happiness.
Bring it on, brother.
The first law is happiness is a choice.
Interesting.
You have to choose to be happy. There are a lot of people who they look towards the negative in life.
Yeah, they do.
You have to look towards the positive. Happiness is a choice. You have to choose it. You have to wake up in the morning and say, I want to be happy. I want things to go well. And that's exactly what I'm looking for in this life. And I believe that's so important. That right there has to be the center block of everything that you do. Because you can choose to be unhappy, or you can choose to be happy.
Well, it's interesting you made this be your first question, because I think a lot of people who have a hard time following some of these absolutely amazing ideas that you have that do work is because they're so downtrodden because of their life and where they are in their life and everything, not realizing it's a simple fact. You give it a chance to try to be a good person.
Yes, sir.
You'll turn it around in a week or so.
Yes, sir.
Maybe less than a week. But you have to stick with this. It's like you can't have a yo-yo diet where you eat and you stop.
No.
If you stick with it, it works, because we're proven fakers.
And you are living proof.
Yeah, and so are you.
Yeah.
It's true.
So the second law